All right, we are right at 6:30, so I will call tonight's Truth and Taxation hearing meeting to order. And Jolene, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Erickson.
Here.
Councilmember Husnick.
Here.
Councilmember Valento.
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Mayor Bain.
Here. We don't have this on the agenda this evening, but we would be remiss if we didn't start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to invite you all to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody that is here tonight for our Truth and Taxation hearing. We are going to, many times when we take public comment at the very beginning of our meeting. We are going to turn this agenda on its head just a little bit tonight. We're going to start first with a presentation from Kevin to walk through what is proposed for the 2025 budget, and then we will open up to public comment, open up for a public hearing. If you are signed in, we will go in the order of your sign-in sheet. If you have not yet signed in, or if you realize during the course of public comment that you would like to still make comment, that is fine. I will open it up once everybody that has signed up to speak has had an opportunity to do so. After closed public comment, we'll bring conversation back to council for consideration, perhaps some additional questions, and then ultimately, should council choose, a vote on this evening's budget and also our 10-year capital plan. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to walk us through tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have a presentation to go over the highlights of the 2025 budget and tax levy. So with that, we'll just get started. So here tonight, we're doing our Truth and Taxation meeting. So really what their meeting requirements are. We're going to provide a summary of where the 2025 budget is being proposed to be approved at. Also what the 2025 tax levy be set at. And then as Mayor Bain said, give the public opportunity for input after this presentation. So this was the budget calendar, what that was presented to City Council all the way back in April. So as you can see, the city's been working on this 2025 budget going as far back as April. So this is just, it's a year-long process. The City Council's put in a lot of work to get to where we are at this point. We've had a lot of budget discussions, a lot of budget workshops to get to where we are at tonight in regards to the 2025 budget and the 2025 tax levy. This slide is just a summary of all the budgets that the city adopts for all of its funds. The main one just to point out is that top line, the general fund. This is the main operating fund for the city. As in years past, you can see that the revenue and expenditures equal the same amount, therefore having a zero impact on changes in fund balance. The other highlights would be the capital funds, would be the park dedication fund, capital improvement fund, capital equipment fund. There are some increases and decreases you see there, but that's where we incorporate the 10-year capital plan and 10-year financial management plan, as well as our plan either increases or decreases as the city plans for the future. This slide just gives a visual of where the city receives most of its revenue from for all budgets, excluding our TIF funds and our enterprise funds. You can see from the pie chart that a big chunk of the revenue does come from the general property tax levy across all funds. A big portion of the pie of about 20% is bond proceeds that are being proposed to be issued next year for the North Shore Trail Improvement Project. This slide just shows where the majority of the expenditures are. As consistent with our years, most of those are in the general fund, as they is the chief operating fund for the city. That's what most of the wages fall into, this to keep the city operations going at the level of service that the city wants. This breaks down the expenditures by category across all funds. A big category is, as consistent with prior years, is the police department. This with the amount of staff that's in there and the wages that are mostly tied to that, therefore make up the largest piece of the pie on this graph. Otherwise, the other percentages and along with the police are consistent with where we have seen them in previous years. So with that, looking at the tax levy for what's being proposed in 2025. If we go right to the bottom, the total levy is being proposed at just over 16.4 million, which is an increase of about 9.87% from the 2024 tax levy. You can see the summary of changes. The majority of it is within the Parks and Trails Fund. The EDA fund has a new position in there that's being funded, and then the general fund, which is the operational fund, has seen an increase of about 8%. We're getting into some more details as we go along here. So where do we start and where are we at tonight? So back in August, the levy amount was proposed at just under 17 million. And that was 13.54% increase back then. So between August and all the way up till December 5th, last week, city staff and city council have worked on the budget and has made some adjustments to get to where we are at today at this meeting. So we made an adjustment to the Parks and Rec position where originally it was in the budget at a higher grade. We readjusted the plan for that position and had some wage savings there. And then at the September 23rd meeting, there was a reduction of $250,000 in the Park Dedication Fund levy. This was made before the required preliminary levy submission that was due to the county on September 30th. So between September and December 5th up to last week, the city council and staff, we held a budget open house. We had an online budget survey. They asked for public input. We held a budget workshop again on November 18th, and then most recently as December 5th, where city council gave direction to staff, where we reduced the general fund levy by $150,000 as looking at 2024 projections. We're able to reduce that contingency fund balance line item to meet our fund balance policy. And then we also were given direction to reduce the capital equipment levy by $100,000 and use some public safety aid dollars that the city received at the end of 23 to help supplement some of those capital equipment purchases as it relates to public safety. So with that all said, as the previous slide showed, it was just over 16.4 million, where we are at a 9.87% increase as being proposed tonight. So why the tax levy increase? We need the increase to maintain the level of service that the city has. From plowing city streets to parks and maintaining parks, public safety, fire, police, we need to maintain that level of service that the residents want and the city council has given us direction on as well. There are also new positions in this budget that are being funded through a tax levy. One is a planning and EDA supervisor, and there's also 2 part-time community service officers in this budget as well. There is a amount for a class and compensation study. This has not been done in the city in quite a few years, and the purpose of that is to retain and attract talent in the city. There's also an increase in the building maintenance fund tax levy, as even though most of this built, for example, this building is relatively new, we do have some maintenance items coming up that need to be planned for in the future. We also have $145,000 levy in this 2025 budget for downtown median and landscaping beautification, and as well as increases to capital park improvement and for maintenance related to our park infrastructure. So there's also some inflationary increases that the city cannot control. Some of those are just wages and benefits tied to our union approved contracts. When looking at the increase from the 2024 budget to 2025 with just the current positions, not any of the new positions that I mentioned, it's just at about 5% increase with the wages and benefits. And then we also see increases, along with what many other residents see, increases in insurance, electric utilities, our computer support, information technology, fuel. We can't necessarily control these costs, and that's accounting for about a 2.87% increase from 2024. So what's the impact on homeowners? So the average home value in Forest Lake in 2025 is that top row of 388,600. So going across the top, you can see the increase is 134,081 cents for the city portion of the taxes. This equates to about $11 per month to the average homeowner in the city of Forest Lake. So where does the tax levy go? Majority goes to the general fund to operate the city. All the remaining ones there are for capital equipment, capital improvements such as streets and infrastructure, park improvements and maintenance that goes along with our park infrastructure, as well as our debt service requirements for debt that the city has issued to help fund streets and whatnot. So this graph just shows where the percent increases have been for the city over the past 10 years. You can see that last year we had the 13.91% increase, with this year showing, as proposed tonight, the 9.87% increase. This is just a history of where the tax rate has been for the city. As you can see, the city has hovered right around 40% for the past few years. There was a decrease back in 2023 as we did see the market valuations have a significant trend upwards, which caused our tax rate to go down. But historically, when you look at the city, our tax rate has been hovering right around that 40% mark, give or take. So with that, that's my presentation. If there's any questions the council has for me right now before we open the public hearing, otherwise we can go from there.
Council, any questions of Kevin before we open public comment? Okay. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so let's open up the public comment portion of our meeting. We'll start with those who have signed in. We also have an opportunity for anybody who might be online that wishes to speak. If you are online and wish to speak, when we get to that portion, please raise your hand online and Jolene can let you into the virtual meeting here.
There's no one signed up on the truth and taxation side, and there is a gentleman, Mike. Were you gonna speak at this one or right?
I'm okay. I got all my questions.
All right, let's open it up. Anybody who would wish to speak in the truth and taxation hearing this evening? Not seeing anybody come forward in the room. Jolene, is there anybody online? And I know you have also maybe an email that needs to be read into the record.
Correct. We don't have any attendees online this evening, Mayor, but I do have the one email from a resident, so I can go forward with
Perfect,
that.
let's
if you're
start there.
ready. Okay. This was received by Mr. Chris Voxlin, Forest Lake resident at 4851 217th Street North. Mr. Voxlin stated, Forest Lake City Council members, Mayor Bain, and Mayor-elect Roberts. Please have this email added to the community feedback at the December 9th City Council meeting regarding proposed property tax increases. Unfortunately, I will be traveling and unable to attend in person. I'm sure we are all aware that local wages have risen around 3% on average, and the consumer price index rose by over 2.4% over the last year. Families and companies are tightening their belts to avoid going into debt. I received my proposed property tax statement for 2025. The City of Forest Lake property tax portion increased by 14.1%. Why does local government not see the need to show the same kind of restraint that individuals and businesses need to exercise? I am strongly opposed to this increase given the current economic environment. The city needs to be accountable to the taxpayers of Forest Lake by staying within a 5% increase. Respectfully, Chris Voxlin.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay, and is there anybody online?
No, Mayor.
All right, we will, last chance? All right, we will close the public comment portion, bring consideration back to council. Council, let's open it up for any questions, comments, thoughts you may have this evening before we proceed. Not seeing any council members jump in here. I do want to just give a little bit of context around my support for the decision tonight to reduce, or the decision that's proposed by staff to reduce the proposed levy from what was in the preliminary levy down by the $250,000 to what is actually being proposed this evening. I've been kind of a big proponent throughout the year that as challenging as these numbers are, we still have a lot of gaps to fill and a lot of catch-up to be done, and specifically in the area of our parks. It is an area where we are not yet fully funded, meaning what we have for backlog and maintenance is, there's a lot of open space between that backlog that needs to be done and what annual levy dollars that we are putting forward to support those needs. This is an area of a theme that we've had, unfortunately, over the last several years. We have made some great strides in catching up on streets. We've made some great strides in catching up in sewer and water and other projects and areas where we've had deferred maintenance. But parks has been that piece where we are not yet fully funded. And also, I would also acknowledge that we still have some open staff positions. Recognize that there are some staffing positions that are being proposed tonight in the budget and are being funded, but there is still a gap between the services that we say that we want to be providing to the community and the services that we are providing to the community. And this too has been an area of catch-up over multiple years. And so in that light of catch-up, I've been a proponent of, gosh, we've really got it. This is painful, but it doesn't get any easier, and we need to recover these gaps. And so I've been a proponent of, we need to stay pretty true to that initial preliminary levy number. However, when we became aware in the last couple of weeks of two different things I would say have changed. One is we became aware that 2024, we have accumulated a budget surplus. And one of the line items for this year's budget is to fund balance. As we are growing, we have a requirement to maintain that fund balance. And if we are, and it turns out we are, able to fund that growth with 2024 budget surplus, to me that is a natural pivot and something that we absolutely should take advantage of. One of the other things that's in the budget this year is routine annual type charges that we have for capital equipment for police and fire for public safety. And we have received in the last couple of years funding dollars from the state that we can put towards those types of purchases. And as we've worked with the chiefs on that list and how those funds should be dedicated, it became apparent that we did have a surplus of unused funds. And again, if there's an opportunity this year in 2025 upcoming to apply those unused funds and not increase the levy, I think it's prudent to do so. So these two topics were discussed in a special meeting with council last Thursday. And I just wanted to give highlight to that because it has been a change from some of the meetings that we've had up to this point. But again, if we're able to identify dollars that make sense for those 2025 needs, the general consensus was in our special meeting last Thursday, and we'll certainly have an opportunity here to talk more tonight, but let's certainly take that opportunity and provide some relief. Nobody loves a double-digit increase. And if we can be smart and find some ways to make those funding needs, we're able to both accomplish what needs to happen with fund balance. We're also able to do what we need to do for police and fire equipment. And let's be smart in how those dollars are allocated. So with that, I'm happy to support the reduction that we have tonight. I'd like to thank council members and staff for getting to this point. It has been, as Kevin's calendar presented, a full year's worth of work. And I just think it's really important that we have that level of transparency and that that we're working as hard as we can to deliver the services that are needed and the streets and all of those projects that are needed, while also keeping this number as modest as possible. Again, we recognize it's been a challenging couple of years from a city tax perspective, and we don't like it as much as anybody else. With that, I will open it up for other comments that council may have.
Madam Mayor, nice job explaining that out. It has been a long process. We did start this in April, and myself, I'm not a fan of double-digit increases. We did take that big bite last year. We've reinvested. We've invested in infrastructure, roads. It's the number that our engineer tells us. It's $1 million per mile to do any roads, and we've not done that efficiently enough, or else we've kicked kick the can down the road. And so we are playing catch up there. Also in parks, I think this council, both last year and this up years, spent more in parks than we ever have. And that's what the residents are telling us. They want to have those amenities. That's how you grow a community. That's how you get more people to live here to support the businesses and the schools. And so those two things are major reasons why we have this increase. And then, as Kevin pointed out, there's fixed costs that we can have no control of. Everyone else in their own budgets at home or a business realize that everything goes up. So to incorporate that increase of fixed costs on top of actually wanting to do some things to create more reasons for people to live in Forest Lake, we landed at this number. I'm much happier. I would not have supported a double-digit increase. I appreciate staff, especially the chiefs, willing to use those public safety dollars to help us get to this point. And so I will be supporting this through this budget for 2025.
Any other comments, additional questions?
No, I'm in support of this budget as well. Just one thing I will call out is as we look next year, how we're going to spend some of these park dollars. I think it's important that we have an up-to-date conversation, especially with the park board, so that we are investing those dollars in the right places, in the right parks at the right time. So that's the only one caveat I'll make, and that's been more relevant to the 10-year capital plan, but I am in support of this budget with that.
Any other comments?
I'll just add that, like everyone else, it's been a long year of budget conversations, as it typically always is. But, you know, in those conversations, it's always that balancing act of making sure we are being responsible fiscally, and then also making sure we are hearing the community members, like what Blake said. Because we have a lot of community members always coming in talking about parks and how they want more amenities for parks. And so we are trying to do that this year. We're not fully there yet. We aren't fully funded, but we'll get there eventually. Just like last year, we were able to fully fund the roads. So I think this budget is going in the right direction. I'm happy that we were able to lower it, and I just support this budget, so.
I also will support it, Mayor Van. One of the things I've been a big advocate of is making sure that the public knows where the dollars are actually going. And I think Kevin's done a pretty good job of that over time. We just got to take the time to really look at that and see exactly where those dollars are going, especially if it's a street in front of your house or in particular, or sewer work or whatever the case may be. And there's always unforeseen things coming up in the wintertime too. So the contingency is something that I don't know how we could get along without it. So I will support this.
Good. With that, I would move that council approve Resolution 12-9-2401 to adopt the final budget for 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. All right, our next item this evening is consideration of the 10-year capital and financial plan, and also the 10-year financial management plan. And Kevin, anything you want to kind of highlight for us before we consider?
Yes, Mayor Bain, just a couple high notes. Last year is the first year that the city council approved their capital improvement plan. I just want to reiterate that the plans there, including your packet, does not commit council to anything in those plans. It's just a commitment that this capital improvement plan and the financial management plan that is included this year is an important part of the city's process, and the city adopts these as an official budget document and planning document for the future. So just want to point that out, that nothing in this commits the city to do anything in 2026 and beyond. It's just a plan for what the city has right now. And through the budget process this year, as you found out, many things change as we go through that process. So just wanted to point that out. Just a high level summary of where the tax levy is projected to be at in those plans in 2026 based on the decisions made going back to 24 and also in 2025 to get the city up to funding where the funding levels it needs to be. It is looking at a 14.69% increase with the cuts and changes that have been made. But the city has seen this year, a lot of things change between how the end of 2024 shapes out and how 2025 is going to look at. But that's just taking into consideration everything the city knows now and where the funding levels need to be. So with that, I just ask that if the city council has any questions for myself, or that you approve resolution 1209-2402 for the capital improvement plan and financial management plan.
Thank you, Kevin. Council, open it up. Any questions or comments on the 10-year plan? Kevin, thanks for that context. I've been a big proponent of us having this 10-year plan in place. I remember making these votes on budgets in years where we hadn't gotten there yet, and we didn't have a 10-year plan. And I don't know how we made some of those decisions, just not knowing what the impact would be in future years. And so I am very glad we have this as a tool. I would also, though, caution and just say that there are things that we talk about within the city that we would like to do that still aren't in the 10-year plan. And so part of this benefit of catching up on some of this deferred maintenance is we can have a plan for it, and we can know what the impact is going to be on those future years. There was a time when, for example, we didn't know when we were going to get to North Shore Trail, and we didn't know how exactly North Shore Trail was going to be funded. And thankfully, those days are behind us. But there are times when, as we're considering that North Shore Trail project, and somebody will say, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually put a bike path along North Shore Trail or a pedestrian path along North Shore Trail? Some of those things that we talk about that we'd like to have in the community, they're still not in the plan. And so again, this kind of goes back to this annual levy number, and as painful as it is, it points to why that number needs to be as high as it is there are things that, again, we want to have within our community that still aren't reflected in that plan. Downtown redevelopment is one of those areas. We've got a lot of future opportunity and expansion in our southwest quadrant. Those are things that will come up over the next couple of years that we still don't have fully baked into that 10-year plan. I don't mean to be too alarmist, but it is, what's in the 10-year plan is a start, but it's not a full exhaustive list of all of the things that are going to come before us. And also, as we are thinking about that, and as we're thinking about how do we do those things with some partners, whether that would be state or county partners, we need to have the foresight to get those plans in place. And so again, getting into this 10-year planning cycle is something we have started, and we thankfully have a draft mapped out. But as Kevin said, look at those numbers as a draft, and how those project dollars are specifically spent are just things that future councils are going to dig into. And again, it's partly why this, having this foresight and taking this vote tonight on just a plan is a commitment of, yes, we are still considering and building into current year decisions what is going to be happening 10 years from now. So other comments on the 10-year plan, thoughts? All right, we're ready for a motion if anyone's ready.
Make a motion to approve the resolution 1209-2402, approving the 10-year capital financial plan and 10-year financial management plan.
The motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. All right, that is the end of our planned agenda for our Truth and Taxation meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And we are adjourned. We're going to give us just a couple of minutes break, and then we'll start here with our city council meeting right at 7 o'clock. And we're adjourned. Consideration this evening is our consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda items 6A through 6M. I will ask council for a motion to approve or any changes. I will also note, I did ask Ryan to just do a quick highlight of the Bolton and Mink year-end review as part of staff updates, and so no need to pull that from the consent agenda unless you have a change. We will just hear a verbal update from him as part of staff updates as well. Motion to approve or any changes?
I'd like to just pull consent agenda C, please.
Very good. Motion to approve items A, B, and D through M. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Next item is consideration of consent agenda item 6C, approve the minutes from the November 18th council workshop. I would move that council approve the November 18th council workshop minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We'll take a second from Councilmember Valento. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries, and we'll move on to our regular agenda. First item for consideration this evening is item 7C, which is a resident petition for a public road. And Amanda, I believe you are walking us through.
Yes, thank you, Inter Council. This packet, on your page 93 of your packet starts this item. We did receive a petition from residents on Iverson Avenue that is currently a private road. They are looking to open up a discussion around how to make that a public road. I don't want to speak for the residents. They're here and they'll be invited up to the podium in a moment. But I think it might be helpful for the council to look on page 93. There's a photo there that shows the residents' properties and then the Iverson Avenue. I want to preface everything that I'm about to say with everything is very preliminary. We don't have title work, we don't have survey, so we're going off of what GIS looks like. GIS is not always accurate. The photo that we have is a GIS photo, but it does appear as though Iverson Avenue, the private road, is located entirely on the property owner to the left. I don't know if that's northeast, south, or west, but in the photo to the left. And I do not believe that that property owner is a petitioner on the petition. That doesn't mean that this isn't solvable, but I believe her name is Pam Oman. She would need to be brought into the conversation because right now the road, appears to sit on her property. It appears that it is currently titled as a private easement, and that is how it is used and accessed today. So we don't in our code have a process, a specific process for how the city would receive petitions of any kind. That's something that I'm actually asking tonight for council to give staff the green light to go ahead and draft an ordinance to that effect for petitions moving forward. But when we're talking about roads specifically, there's a lot of statutes around how to turn a public road into a non-existent road, just remove your right of way, those types of things. There is not a process to turn a private road into a public road from a statutory perspective. So we don't really have any guidance there. So there are several topics tonight, frankly, around cost, right? Various components of the cost, but really we're talking about costs in terms of how to make this road from a private road to a public road, what those costs would look like and who's going to bear those costs. I think with that said, as sort of the setup, I would ask for council to invite the petitioners up here because they can certainly speak to their request better than I can.
Very good. Petitioners, welcome to either, I don't know if you have a spokesperson that would like to speak, and as many people can speak tonight as who would like to speak. Whoever would like to start, if you could come to the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Rick
Welcome.
Van Ornum. I live on the Iverson Road we're talking about. I think most of our party is here and represented. I'm probably the least experienced out of all of them. We've only lived there. We built just in 2021. But prior to that, as I understand it, at one point the city did take care of our road where they graded it twice a year and plowed it. And since I've been there, that hasn't been the case. It's been very difficult and challenging. I think so. Great, Amanda, that you sent some pictures. We've got some more if you'd like to see the major holes and dips that get in the road. It's pretty crazy, especially in the wintertime, just to navigate. It's actually, in all of our opinions, a public safety hazard as well. I was concerned about even if emergency workers had to get down that road. So I think this started for us when a sign was put up that was blue, and we're like, oh, blue? We didn't have a road sign before that. And Michelle, one of our neighbors, found out, oh, that's because it's a private road. But when she called, it was mentioned there might be a possibility that that could be turned, or at least we should look into turning it back into a public road, and maybe that grading and plowing could come back. So cost-wise, that's one option that we're certainly open to. I know there's probably others as well that might be quite a bit more expensive, but I think we're interested in the various options that might be available to us.
Do you mind just describing, so primary need, is it grading and plowing? Kind of give us your laundry list. It's helpful to just hear
Sure. So-
what brings you here.
Yeah, so it's dirt right now, and so these potholes get to be massive and very deep, and we end up, I think about all of us at various times have brought in some fill to try and cover that. So I speak for the group, but jump in if I'm wrong, but I think the big thing would be, boy, if we could get it back to where it's graded and that plowing is done in the winter time. You know, if we get 2 feet of snow, some of the residents that don't have four-wheel drive wouldn't be able to get out even. So I think that's our primary. I think laundry list would be long-term. Geez, I think just a couple blocks up off of 97, I saw another road that was actually done by the city where it was turned into asphalt, and that's certainly something else that we'd be interested in depending on what the cost would be. Those are our big things, I think. I don't think it's realistic. We don't have fire hydrants, but I think that might be a little bit more that we're all wells. And I don't know if you can have fire hydrants down that type of thing. There's no lighting, but again, I don't think there is around the neighborhood. So those are our big things we're looking for. Did I
Thank
miss
you.
anything?
Anyone else that would like to speak?
Just since Rick is new to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We.
Could I have you start with your name and address for the record? That'd be great.
Yep, it's Jim Sherman, and I'm at 21123 Iverson Avenue North is. And there was, in the past, the city would plow or would grade the road with a road grader twice a year, and we had no issues. There's 7 houses on the street. I know for my family, we're down to 4 drivers, but we had 5 driving over this road. If you've seen the pictures, every day, multiple times with multiple drivers. And one of the things we were told by the council in the past is the reason the road was no longer going to be graded is because they were grading another private road and they hit a mailbox and they had to replace it. So I understand that our mailboxes are out of the way. They're not on the street. They're in one location at the end of the street off to the side. So the other thing I think that's happened with the road not being graded away from the homes is we've seen water coming onto people's driveways because the road is no longer sloped the way it was. So I just wanted to add that history because you weren't there at that time, but and then the other concern too is when the snowplows come on the public road, they leave a massive amount of snow there that if we can get through the street, we still have to go through that big pile of snow from the snowplows. So I just wanted to add that detail. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Don't go far, but. And is there anybody else that would like to speak? Amanda, you back?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Council, so one piece of information that I did not have until tonight was that at some point in history, the city took care of the road.
Dave, do you have some insight for us? Or is this also new information?
How far do you want to rewind time back to township days? We can,
Is that what we're, is that how far back we're talking? Can you help us on time frame on when did the road stop being, when was the last time you saw a grader? Before the,
right closer, yeah.
okay.
So there's a number, I mean, wish I'd have brought the map, and I don't know, maybe I have it too, but it shows all of our private roads throughout the city. Prior to 2013, we had a operator that liked to just go and grade it. Private roads, people's driveways, he was
Full service.
doing a little bit of everything, so around that 13, 14 time, there was kind of a look through of, yeah, we probably don't need to be private stuff, so that's probably accurate. I'd say about 2013, 2014, where kind of a whole study was kind of where's, what are the private roads, what are the public roads, you know. Could be a mailbox was hit, I don't know, but there was, yeah, so the spot there where there was a lot of stuff happening where we probably shouldn't be doing what we were doing.
Go ahead. Thank you, Your Honor, Council. So that's a piece of information that we can talk about at a staff level, but that was new information for me tonight. So threshold, really the threshold question is from the council perspective, there would need to be staff time, money, resources into pulling the title work, or frankly, the property owners could, provide us with title work. But getting the title work to confirm how the property, that road is currently owned. If it's a private easement, they can't give us a public easement, because if you think about real estate, if I have fee title to something, I have everything, right? I have all of the rights in my bundle of sticks for my property. And if I have a right-of-way easement, so if I have the public control, then I get to do things as the government. If I have a private easement, though, that's considered a lesser right than the government, than a public easement, and so I can't just give my private easement to the city in this situation and turn it into a public easement. It does not work that way. We would have to purchase from the underlying property owner a public easement. If it's the individuals here this evening, they would probably just sign that over to us and wouldn't expect any sort of compensation. If it's that adjacent property owner, she does have the right under eminent domain law to require fair compensation, just compensation for what we're taking. So there's a lot of different kind of pieces. The first couple of pieces are, all right, there needs to probably be a survey and there needs to be title work to figure out how is this actually owned. That is going to cost some money. Complete ballpark, and I am very much ballparking here, but I would ballpark that probably around, for all of those properties plus a survey, you're looking at about $20,000 in cost to get that title work and that survey done. It's not a small amount of money, which is why the question to council is, right out the gate, how do you want this to be set up in terms of who is paying these administrative costs to get to an answer of, can this be done? And then, so pin on that, but that would be, the first question is who's sort of paying for these costs? The second thing to just note is this is a private road, as the photos show. It's in tough shape. If we were to take it as a public road under our city code has minimum road requirements for public streets. So it would have to be brought up to the level of a public street, which, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, does that require asphalt?
Correct.
And curb and gutter?
This would be rural, still not curb and gutter. Paved.
So asphalt and I believe stormwater facilities as well, based on what the watershed requires, right?
Bigger stormwater permitting would be over
Be
the,
a full stormwater permit with the pervious area would be reconstructing.
So I will not attempt to ballpark with that cost. But it's not five figures. So that is the piece to understand around, there's definitely some hurdles here. That said, there is some new information around the fact that we previously cared for this road that I do think merits some conversation at the staff level in terms of the impact that that might have on some of what we need to do moving forward. But for the purposes of tonight, what I'm looking for from the council is some direction on, do you want the city to pay these initial title fee costs, survey costs? Do you want to set up some sort of a petition process that would have the applicants be required to escrow something for those costs? Or do you want the instructions to the petitioners to be, you need to go get these things, this survey, this title work, and bring that back to staff to analyze the ask? And so then they would, pay for that work and then bring that to the council. So those are kind of the three options for that first bucket of costs. The second is, if we actually do take on this road, the cost of acquiring the public easement, the cost of bringing the road up to standards, who's paying for that? And we do have a road assessment policy, but I'm not sure that it really contemplates situations like this. So it's possible that our road assessment policy would require some review at a minimum. So I know that those aren't super fun answers, but those are the realities of the situation. It is a little more nuanced. So to go back to the first question is the initial review administrative costs.
And,
Just a quick point of clarification, Amanda, it sounds like that first point is down a pathway of purchase and city maintained. And what I heard in public comment tonight was all options are on the table. Not necessarily that's the only option. Is there an option for grading and plowing? So is
Yeah.
what you're suggesting as step one required for that pathway?
So if we, Your Honor, Counsel, if you wanted to go down going back to you grade it twice a year and you plow it, there is a weird statute that requires that if we plow private roads, they must pay the actual, the real costs to plow and related maintenance. So I would just say the grading and the plowing would need to be paid by the property owners for the private road. It would get a little bit tricky because technically the private road is not on the petitioner's property, it's on that adjacent property. So we would probably need to do some fancy documents to sort of make sure that they're being assessed to the correct property, the users versus that adjacent property owner. But that could be a feasible option as well. That does require, I would go back to the same question of, that's going to require some legal research and some things. And so who do you want paying for that analysis as well?
can I just ask I have a hard time believing that the city's going to be the low-cost provider for plowing and grading services. It feels, and I also appreciate the interesting question of, well, can we just become a city street? And let's start that conversation. But given what we've just heard about the cost to even start the project, and that's before we've even entered into conversations with the property owner about those acquisition costs. I mean, we're in a bit of a bind where the cost to even start the project start mounting fairly quickly. And I would hate to have everyone be overcommitted if there is just, if the base need is, we just really need some plowing and some snow removal. I'm not sure we're going to land in a spot where we are the best option. We do great work, but I think you may have some other options out there. And so I guess that would, before we get too far down the road of something that's quite complicated and very, very expensive, I guess I'd want to better understand that we're heading down a path that you also want to head down. Typically, these costs end up being borne by the property owners, and so we're happy to do a big project and happy to have that become a city street. If that's a path that financially you want to go down, I just don't know if we're going to hit those marks that you want to do that. So it's a little bit of very much chicken and egg, and because again, we're going to end in an answer here where even some of these initial $20,000 type costs for surveys, that's going to have to, unless council has some other thoughts, I think have to be a build-back agreement. I don't feel great about us taking that on as a city-borne cost. We have a lot of private roads. These questions come up occasionally, but ultimately, generally, property owners end up like, oh, we'll figure something else out, just because the costs, as you can just start to tell, become very costly very quickly. And I see a hand up in the back. If you could, though, just come to the microphone just so we can all hear.
I think one of the concerns we have, or questions we have, and Amanda, you had mentioned, is this a publicly owned easement or private? I believe it's private. So one of the things that we may be limited on is the owner of the property, which, by the way, it's on sale right now. They put it up on the market on Zillow. And there's some things in there about, having some properties built on the 14 acres and having lake access, deeded lake access, all these things up in the air. But in the past, when we asked about potentially doing, for example, recycled asphalt on the road, the property owner says, no, you can't do that. So that's one of our concerns, is if it's a privately held easement, which I believe it is, we could be at the mercy of the property owner. And by the way, it's Julie Oman, not Pam Oman, Julie Oman. Thank you.
And with all due respect, you're at the mercy. We also are at the mercy, right? Or at least financially, right? Like we have, there is a compensation process that is just going to have to be the nature of the beast because of how it seems like it's titled, so. Council, I jumped in with some thoughts here. Let's step back, and as we're thinking about, is this cost that would be part of a build-back agreement? Is that a path that everyone agrees with? Is there an inkling that thinks that there's some city-borne costs here? Let's just open it up.
Well, so my first question was asked about the property owner. So she sounds like not allowing to put any recycle down. So the likelihood of giving up this land probably is unlikely. Is that correct?
That could be. That actually came from her late husband.
Okay.
So I don't know about this is.
And I think it's okay, maybe we identify some things for the question list, and maybe that's one of the things for the question list of, we may not know tonight, and might be part of what needs to be determined.
I think the other thing is, I would be a little bit open to have some kind of cost share on some of this to upgrade a city, well, what could potentially be a city street, which then maybe would add some tax value to those homes, therefore the city would benefit from that. So I would be open to that. It's not a hard no for me, but it does, you start talking watershed district and it just gets out of hand in a hurry. And so I don't, even if we were to share a portion of that, I don't know if you'd have the appetite to go down that road, because it could get really expensive quickly.
Yeah, I guess I'd just be really curious to know more about the private easement, and, I mean, if the easement's there, and there's several houses built along there, I mean, how is it that they somehow can dictate that it has to be a mud pit that these people have to drive through? I mean, that seems.
Is that question a property owner to property owner question? Dave, go ahead.
Kind of similar to Everton Avenue North, if you know, on the south side of Clear Lake, we get that probably every couple of years about maintaining that road. That's another private road that more disrepair than in this road. Not make saying one is worse than the other, but it's the same thing where it's a private road. And I think the easement is there because we have sewer that runs underneath both of these roads. So that's probably the access point of why that happened, to give sewer to these houses. roadway easements then were created and were private, and we run into the same thing on Everton Avenue North. On that side, you can't get enough of them to ever create a petition to turn it in, but your point as well, a lot of other cheaper companies we're not telling the private owners that they have to shovel this out themselves. They have more than the ability to have somebody come and grade the road twice a year or come and snowplow in the winter. It's not like, there's tons of contractors out there that can do it. Hookster Avenue, that's just a little to the south of them. They've hired a contractor that grades it twice a year and they do the snow removal. So, there's companies out that do that. They can do it cheaper than us and they'll do it at different intervals and all that. So it just gets dicey if we start going into private property and plowing. So not that we don't have that capacity to do it, we just don't want to set that precedent because we have a lot of private road areas that if we start jumping in private roads, where do you stop with that too? And what is your threshold for that?
Want to take us next?
So another fun piece of information that I just learned tonight was that the property is for sale. It sounds like this private easement is on. That is a large parcel. We've talked about that at development meetings, that seems like there could be some development on that parcel. Obviously, if that parcel were to be developed and a couple homes were put on it, that completely changes the dynamic in terms of if they're also accessing this as part of the requirements under our current code, they would have to make that a public road, right? So they would have to dedicate that as part of a future development. So I hesitate to suggest to the council, maybe it's a wait and see, but if it's on sale right now, maybe it's a wait and see. Maybe it's a come back in 60 days or 90 days or whatever. Or maybe it's initially reaching out to the current property owner just to have a conversation to see if there's any appetite about dedicating a public easement through there. I'm not suggesting that that's the best action, but sometimes you can cut a lot of wasted time and money and energy out if you just have a phone call with somebody. So those are my two reactions, and I don't like doing math at the table like this because I usually get it wrong, but those are my two off-the-cuff thoughts.
The conversation with the property owner in light of that property being up for sale, who is best positioned to have that? Is that a resident conversation, group of residents with that property owner? Should the city be at that table? What should that be? I say that because as soon as the city's at the table, the dynamic always changes. But there is a point there, city has to be at the table if this is going to be a city project. And so how would you thread that needle?
Yeah, so I would defer back to the petitioners in terms of if they want to try to go solve this privately first, then obviously we would stand down and there would be no speaking about it. If it's something that they thought that it would be more beneficial if the city reaches out to the adjacent property owner, then I would suggest that it would probably be Abby, just given her, community development director hat. So, sorry, Abby. I can be on the call too. So I would suggest that she maybe just from a friendly development perspective, we see it's up for sale. Are you getting development interest? What does that look like? And having a conversation from that perspective might be the softest city touch, unless the petitioners are looking to exit stage left right now.
I think it'd be great to have you all reach out.
City reach out, development call?
It seems to me that if that road was public, and it should be as far as I'm concerned, that would benefit both sides. Right, and so I don't know how far back this goes. When was the first house built in there? Do you know, Dave, by any chance? And all as long as it's been going on? The reason I'm asking is that it's back a ways, right? Because you talked about. Yeah. Point being is that.
Ours was built in the early 50s.
Sure. Point being that nowadays that'd never be allowed to not have public access from a from residents. And so there's got to be some kind of a compromise we can make that work, it seems to me. And don't know exactly what that is or what that path is, but just seems to me that that public road, if it was a public road, would benefit both sides of the road. So something that I would like to see the city at least do the survey on it and see where it's at and maybe reach out to the other landowner there and find out what we can do with it. Sure.
Can I just add that in the ad for selling the land, they said the lot size, which is adjacent to our house, which is one of the buildable lots, we think, is approximate, and that a survey needs to be done. And there's been delineation surveys done.
Maybe.
Delineate wetlands, and there's enormous amount of wetlands, so there's limited building area, I believe, on these 14 acres.
I will say, in just a cursory review, everything that's been said tonight, lots of facts, that it is, the 14 acres is over half of it's encumbered by wetlands. So even the idea of maybe being able to put an improvement such as a linear road through here might not be able to happen. I'm not saying that's the case. I do think that the best thing for the city to do is to reach out to the landowner, especially now that it's listed. That was news to us, even I think when we first brought this up a week or so ago, and just see if there's been any sort of movement on the property and to keep us posted if anyone's interested. We get inquiries all the time when there's properties for sale, people looking at buying them. So I definitely will also alert my staff if we start to hear of potential interest in the property. I do agree that a improved roadway through here could enhance the other side of the roadway and the developability there, but those lots already have access onto Iverson as well. So there's some opportunities through there, but also some constraints. So.
Go ahead, any other comments?
I do have a question. 21165 Iverson, Matt Dowdle. Thank you for taking the time for this. It's been a long time. I moved in 2012, and I'd say they did a year or two following. But regarding it saying a private easement and drainage, what recommendation would you give for that? We've had companies out there we won't touch it because we need the property owner's blessing as well. So that's something I look for advice on. And then also, if those lots were sold, what would that look like for us to kind of plan ahead?
If those lots were sold, can somebody just give the property owners just a very high level of what that development agreement would look like and the city process for easements and what that would look like if they were to parcel off those current acreage?
Sure, if there was going to be a subdivision, the neighborhood, everybody within 350, 500, Susan might know the exact foot distance better than I, would be noticed that there'd be a planning application submitted and a consideration by our planning commission. We'd look at, there would be 3 different applications, but you'd be noticed at the time of preliminary plat. Preliminary plat, we look at what kind of the lot configuration would be, but also any sort of public improvements, such as a roadway or any other public infrastructure needed in the area. The city would enter into a development agreement so that the developer would be obligated to make certain improvements as part of the subdivision. Now, our ask of developers, though, has to bear a rough proportionality to the development. If somebody came to me today and said, hey, I want to split this, I just want 2 lots, both of them accessed off of Iverson, that's a harder sell for us to say, oh, you have to put in a public road behind you. With regard, I did just do a spot check on a few of the deeds on the properties. It looks like most of them have been deeded that 33 feet in the easement. With your question with grading, I would suggest you do it within the 33 feet or you call Julie Oman and talk with her. Unfortunately, it's a private property owner issue at the moment. I didn't mean to speak for our legal counsel, but I mean, that's what, if somebody came to me and asked these exact things, that's what unfortunately it would be. I think that doing a little bit of exploration with Julie, and seeing what would happen, could happen there. Frankly, I don't know that getting a survey right now makes any sense. I think the only thing that could probably be of a benefit is some title work, but I think the title work's still gonna find they have a 33-foot private easement. That's just a hunch from doing this for a little while.
Suggested next action, have Abby reach out with a phone call, have a conversation with current property owner about potential sale options. And then Abby, I'm assuming you have a primary contact for the resident group? Is that right?
Oh, yeah, yep, I happily can get that from Amanda and Jolene.
A quick follow-up question on that. So if they have a 33-foot easement, could they do some recycle or maintain the road at all, or is that still property? Is that
That's
still
something they
requested?
should probably contact their legal counsel and ask.
Your Honor, counsel, it depends on what the words are in that private easement. So it's in, our understanding so far is that they're in deeds versus, like in the actual, deed versus what we call paper easements. In paper easements, you can put in more rules around, you're responsible for the maintenance, you're responsible for, you get to put up a fence, you get to, all of these special things. Usually in deed language, it's much more abbreviated, and unfortunately, it's not as clear. So I'm assuming that's the situation here. Generally, you could go by what the words are there, and if the underlying property owner tells you no, you do it at the risk of getting sued, essentially, by that property owner. The one issue, so just looking at GIS, it kind of looks like, I understand that everybody has a 33-foot easement, but it isn't like it's the end of her, it doesn't look like it's the end of her property. It looks like the road is sort of, look on page 93, it looks like, frankly, her property line comes into some of these properties' front yards, and maybe on one or two of them, even their home. I don't think that's correct, but that's where a survey could confirm that the 33 feet is actually where the road is versus the 33 feet is some location that's not even where the road is sitting today. But a survey is very expensive. It's the bulk of that upfront cost compared to title commitments.
If Abby's willing to reach out to Julie, I think that's a good first step, and
Hopefully this property being up for sale is a bit of a transition point and an opportunity for some new options to be on the table. Amanda, one of the things that you asked of us is, a question was going to be, if the underlying property owner does not want to sell right away to the city, will the city use condemnation to make the road public? I'm not going to be here for that vote, but I can just imagine that's going to be a really tough sell, to use some level of condemnation to force that transaction, given that this has been a transaction between private property owners for decades. And so the turning point is the condition of the road, and there are some other solves for that wouldn't have to involve the city. I appreciate why everyone's asking, but there are some other options on the table that I just, no one has a crystal ball, but I think it's going to be challenging for future council to say, yes, we're going to do a condemnation and we're going to force that transaction. So I think finding options of agreement is probably the best course of action right now. Again, if somebody's already willing to sell, then there's a great open door to maybe some options to come forward. Other?
Yeah, just, I have one other, I think we have clear direction for where to start. The general petition process, is that something that council would be open to staff bringing forward an ordinance that just sort of spells out, here's how it works to do petitions in the city? So there's a clear process for when people come, we can point them to it. It saves time, it saves everything. Is that something that you're open to, us bringing back?
Yes, agree. I would assume that process would include kind of clear delineation of what the plan is for escrowed costs and what goods, yes. Yeah. I would agree. Any other guidance, either Abby or Amanda, that you need from council on this topic?
Not right now.
Petitioners, I know we didn't get you a final answer today. Hopefully, we've given you some additional information. Anything else you'd like council to know before we close this one out? Very good. Thanks for being here. Okay. We are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is consideration of 7B, certification of delinquent utility accounts. Kevin, I believe, are you walking us through this?
Yes, I am, Mayor Bain. Mayor Bain and City Council. So in front of you tonight is a resolution to approve certification of delinquent utility accounts. Along with that resolution, before that is approved, the city does hold a public hearing for anyone who wishes to speak regarding this topic. So this is an annual process that the city does this time of year where utility bills are unpaid. Notices are sent out to the homeowners via letter, and those were sent out this year at the end of October, early November. They are notified that they have not paid their utility bills, and they have the opportunity to come in and pay. Come in tonight to talk at the public hearing, and then if it is unpaid this year by December 12th, then those will be sent to the county by the end of the year to be paid along with their property taxes. There is an 18% fee added onto any delinquent balances if it is sent to the county. If it is paid before December 12th, then that 18% fee is not added. So with that, if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I would request that you open the public hearing.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Council, any questions of Kevin before we open public hearing? Not seeing any questions. All right, with that, we will open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this topic? If so, please join us at the podium. Anyone that would like to speak in public hearing? Elaine, anybody online?
No one indicating they wish to speak, Mayor.
All right. Else? Not seeing anyone come forward, we'll close public hearing, bring consideration back to council. Council, for your consideration is Resolution 12-9-2405. I would move that council approve Resolution 12-9-2405. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, we'll take a second from Councilmember Erickson. Any discussion?
Just a couple questions on this. Does staff take, on some of these, like ones up to 25,000, is there any individual reach out to some of these people on some of these larger dollar amounts? Because we're at $500,000 here in delinquent. So is there proactives? Do we hire a contract, subcontract out to a collection agency or something? Because these are substantial dollars. And
So in these cases, we are the collection agency with these bills that are unpaid. They are noticed every time they get a quarterly bill, there is a previous balance on there. I did specifically talk to our utility billing staff on these larger amounts. Has there been any direct contact made? They've tried to reach out to what the information we have. Some homeowners, we have an email and a phone number, so we're able to. Others, we just have an address, so we send them the notice for the public, for a public hearing, and that is unpaid. So there are instances where we do look at this. We try to be as proactive as we can, because ultimately at the city, we'd rather have them pay than have these get sent to their taxes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion on the table with a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose, and motion carries. Our next item this evening is consideration of the 2025 fee schedule and ordinance 745. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor Bain and City Council. So again, annually, in front of you is some proposed changes to the annual fee schedule. Before I get started, I just want to note that it is ordinance number 745. There is a typo on the actual fee schedule where it says 746, but the correct ordinance number is 745. So part of the city's annual process this time of year is looking at the city fee schedule. So working with all department heads, they reviewed the fees that are charged specifically to their department and come up with any recommended changes that they have regarding the fees. One real consistency with the fees this year for changes have been increases to areas where there's staff time involved, there's more staff involvement and time to process certain fees. So there are some increases to those fees being proposed. This reflect the increase in those wages, as a lot of these fees have not been adjusted for quite some time. There is, Abby did add some administrative citation language into the fee schedule as well, which is new this year. So that's up for your review. But other than that, it's really it's really a reflection of how long are these fees taking city staff time. Looking at the time spent, the wages have increased since they've last been increased. And also in some cases with regards to the park and recreation and rental facilities, they haven't been increased in some time, and really just getting those up to market and the maintenance that goes along with those. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Council. If you have any specific questions for myself, or if there's questions on specific fees, I turn those over to the department heads as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Council, let's open it up for council questions, discussion points. I have a question kind of related to some of the feedback we heard in open forum. Refresh my memory on, I know we've had a long relationship with FLA, and that agreement and those fees associated with FLA have taken on multiple paths through the years. My question is, I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, is there a pathway to have, as consideration of part of what we're adopting tonight, some sort of a, I liked the way Myron phrased it, which was a 2-year phase-in that does something that specific for the FLA fees that provides some transition time. And there's a lot on this particular fee agreement. I'm just not sure how to best, I guess, pose that question, but I'm open to some sort of a phase-in. There are a lot of moving pieces on both of our organizations, and so I think landing on something that makes sense is something that we all want to do. But also, I don't want to hold up an entire fee schedule for that particular question. So again, my question, Dave.
Yep. So the fee schedule, those costs for chalking fields, doing that maintenance is for anybody that's not in our, so FLA has like a priority use agreement with the city. So those fees are all waived. So that's when they do their scheduling and their field priority use, that it doesn't go along with this field scheduling.
So that feedback is a conversation on a different day.
It's a different conversation. The fees on here is for if another entity wants to come in and use a field, this is what we would charge them to prep the field. And it has nothing to do with FLA. It's asterisked out that it doesn't, their agreement supersedes the fee schedule, or we don't do a per time like that.
Okay. And where are we for that agreement? Are we in, I'm drawing a complete, are we in pre-negotiation for next year's schedule?
Correct.
So not yet finalized, right?
Not yet finalized.
Not yet finalized, okay.
Yep.
Okay. That was my specific feedback on the fee schedule. Happy to open it up for any other points that council might have.
Any of these increases are, I would assume, are still in line with what our comparable cities are doing. For the most part, there's nothing that's out there that.
Don't mind, Kevin, I would jump in. I've only been here for a couple of years now. I know I haven't been able to take the time to really do the best market rate analysis in the community development fees. It's something that we've intended to do. It's just wasn't able to be done this year. I don't think that our fees are exorbitantly higher or even super low compared to those, but it is worth dedicating some resources to that, I think, in another go-round of this.
Other questions, comments specific to the fee agreement or fee schedule? It is a foundational document that, impacts beginning of the year items, so it is important that we are able to take action tonight if we're able. Anyone ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 745, an ordinance repealing and replacing City Code Chapter 35 fees and service charges.
Motion, is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries. Our next item this evening is item 7D, consideration of the cannabis registration ordinance, which is ordinance 745 and resolution 12/9/2410. Amanda's walking us through this.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This one will not be as long as last time, I promise. It's a quick one. Okay. Is it showing up there, Jolene?
Where are you in right now on your PowerPoint? You have your PowerPoint up?
Yep.
Can you go to, start from the beginning?
Yep. Anything? Nothing? Let me go back out and go back in. Oh, there we go. Just needed to be patient.
Yeah.
Oh no, what did I do?
Do I need to just stand over?
Yeah, just stand with me. I know.
Can you just unplug it?
Yeah. Let me go back out. Go back in. Oh, yeah. It did just show up, right?
It was showing.
Okay.
Oh. You know, you had a couple of these open.
Oh, I want to close it.
Where'd your mouse go?
Close the rest of these. This one is not that complicated. Where did my mouse go? There we go.
There. No.
Oh, it wants to, it's trying to fight with that. Okay. Okay. Sure acted like it, didn't it? Hmm?
Yeah, do you want to maybe give it to me and I'll put it on?
Yeah, I mean, I can just talk and you don't, I mean, this is not a complicated one.
Let's use this.
We can put it onto this one. Why don't you start talking, we can do that.
Okay. Here you go. Let's see.
So, load it on here.
Okay. I really can just talk about it. It's not that complicated. Nope, sorry. This goes on this side.
You've got a service, don't you?
Yes. Okay. Well,
Or do you want to just give me?
yeah, do you want to do that? I have two. I mean, I have this one, I have the next one. So we'll just go from one to. Sorry about that, technical difficulties, Your Honor, Counsel. Well, that's getting set up. I will just try to remember what I said on there, and we'll go from there. So if you recall, at the last council meeting, you approved the cannabis use ordinance, and that was the zoning ordinance about where cannabis businesses get to go. Tonight's ordinance is the cannabis business registration ordinance. And that is the ordinance that is allowing the city to register retail cannabis businesses. As a reminder, OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management, gets to do all of the licensing, and what the city gets to do is register the retail businesses. Retail businesses being cannabis retail, cannabis mezzo businesses, and cannabis micro businesses. So those are the three businesses that get to be registered with the city. For the ordinance itself, just kind of, it's in your packet, but generally speaking, the ordinance is, we are not limiting the number, so we are not limiting the number of registrations. If you recall, council decided to do some limiting through distance requirements between stores, distance requirements from schools, parks, that type of thing, and then the zoning districts in which they are allowing these businesses. Oh, here we are. Thank you. Okay, yay, I already talked about that. All right. So the ordinance, we'll kind of walk through it in terms of the time for the applicant. So the applicant has some pre-registration requirements. These are things that they need to do before they can register their business. They need to have a compliance check. So that means that somebody from city staff is going out to the business and making sure that it complies with the city code. They also need to get all of their related zoning approvals. So if you recall, all these businesses need to have an interim use permit. So that's something that they're going to need to get before they can register. And then they also need to pay a registration fee. The registration fee is set by statute. It's going to vary depending upon the business, but it will range from about $500 to about $1,000. That is an annual fee because they do need to renew this every year. We don't have control over it, though. It's what's set by statute. So in addition to demonstrating that they already have the interim use permit and they've done a compliance check, they also need to provide the following documents to the city staff for review and approval. That's the security plan. That's going to go to PD. The odor mitigation plan, as we talked about at the last meeting, we're not entirely sure how we're going to vet these, but we know we want them. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then a photometric plan. So if it's going to be in a greenhouse, we want to ensure that it's not going to be shedding light, into a neighbor's property and being a nuisance in that way. So these are additional documents that they would need to provide with their completed application. So once they've provided all these documents, the application is going to be reviewed and approved administratively. In other words, it's not going before council or planning commission, and that is because you will have already seen it via the interim use permit and of course any other approvals that would need to be had at that time. That interim use permit really has a lot of the exact same things that this registration requires, so it's really redundant, and we didn't want to add an extra 60 days to their ability to open. So that's why we're doing it administratively. And so they do need to have, we will need to do annual compliance checks on these retail businesses. It's going to be exactly like the PD does for tobacco and alcohol. So they'll have somebody under 21 go in and try to purchase, and that's how they'll run the compliance checks. Those need to happen annually. They also need to renew the registration annually. Okay, so that's the ordinance in a nutshell. There's a little bit in the ordinance, just so you know, around what we can do to terminate our registration. It is 100% regulated by statute, so it is quite literally a copy and paste from what's already in statute. And we have to sort of run some things through the Office of Cannabis Management if we need to revoke a registration. I stand for questions. Otherwise, if you're looking for next steps, the steps are on the screen in front of you. Motion to approve. And is this actually ordinance 745, not 746? It's 746 in the packet.
746.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So motion to approve ordinance 746, and then the motion to approve the resolution for summary publication. If you recall, we're doing that so we do not have to publish the whole ordinance.
Council, open it up for questions. The initial, in the ordinance, in the initial section, of course, I just lost it. Upon issuing the registration, we call that a compliance check. I don't necessarily care what we call it, but it's more of a building code inspection, right?
Right, correct.
And then later in the ordinance, we also do reference a more traditional compliance check around age requirements.
Yes, you're right. So, and that's just using the words from the statute.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first one is a compliance check with city code.
Yes.
And then the second one is these annual compliance checks that are really age verification.
And we do not, does the statute require us to, or does our ordinance contemplate us doing more of the traditional building code on an annual basis? Or is that a one-time pre-opening and then it's just age verification?
It's pretty much a one-time pre-opening and then it's just age verification.
Okay. Just given the nature of the product and given the sensitivity, because there's not ever, I guess maybe what I'm getting at, there's not ever, they will do an initial plan of operations and they're going to say, here's our odor mitigation plan, here's our photometric plan. Do we have subsequent follow-up checks to confirm that they're doing what they said they were going to do, or is that just complaint-based?
That is just complaint-based right now. So those are all documents that are required to get registration, but I will also be putting all of those into their interim use permit as conditions. And so really the tool that you have to, the code enforcement tool, if you will, for these businesses, if they are producing odor or if they're violating their security plan, is to pull their interim use permit. And then they cannot operate. And that's a mechanism that we've designed because we don't have the ability to pull a license, right? So to alcohol, tobacco, we can decide that we're going to pull their license because the state is not allowing local control over the license. We're getting a little creative, and so we're kind of creating, if you will, a license through that interim use permit. So this is very light touch because we have a bigger, more effective tool.
So would there be a mechanism where we could also call that that beginning inspection also part of the annual process? And if they fail, yes, it's a failure of the interim use permit, but can we also then do that reporting up to the state and say, oh, by the way, we had a photometric plan and they're not in compliance with that either? Can we do that on an annual basis or just not advised?
Yeah, so they have to renew every year. And so that they have to give us the same paperwork every year and renew. And then we have to send to the state every year, yes, they've renewed their registration, or no, we failed their registration or whatever. So we will be in very frequent communication with OCM. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. It feels like it's pretty redundant. We'll see, right? I think there's going to be some changes in terms of how this is all structured within the next couple of years because there's some weird overlap.
Other questions you may have? All right, we may be ready for a motion if anyone's ready.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve cannabis business registration ordinance 746.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries.
Motion to approve resolution 1209-2410, the summary publication of ordinance 746.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And the motion carries. We will transition next to item 7E, which is the building citation fee. And Amanda, whenever you're ready. I'm sorry, I said building citation, administrative citation fee.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor, Counsel. So tonight, we have an ordinance for your consideration regarding the administrative citation fee. If you recall, in 2024, the beginning of last year, council approved a package of code enforcement-related ordinances, and one of the tools in those ordinances was the administrative citation. And so the administrative citation is a tool that we can use to deal with non-criminal city code violations. So we're talking about the weeds, not mowing, plowing, or not plowing, violating a watering requirement or watering ban, building maintenance, just sort of those types of things. You can use it for any code violation, but really it's sort of designed to get at those public nuisance-y type things. So right now, as you know from Kevin's presentation, there's a list of administrative citations fees in the fee schedule. And so, for example, if you don't shovel your driveway when you're supposed to, your sidewalks, it's a $50 fine for the first time. And it depends on what the infraction is. The dollar amount is based on, the severity of the infraction, essentially. The fines are assessed after compliance notices are sent out. So first, the property owner has the opportunity to mow their lawn or put away the garbage that they had, or whatever the situation is. If they fail to do so, then we can issue this administrative citation. What the ordinance in front of you is asking for, it's a short ordinance, it's asking to increase the fines for repeat offenders. This is very common. In fact, I don't have a single city that doesn't have an administrative citation ordinance that doesn't also have this escalator in it, because what you will find and what we have found is that there are some chronic offenders. And so $50, fine, they'll pay the $50 and they're just gonna kind of keep doing it. But when that amount doubles each time, you can get their attention faster and more effectively. So what the ordinance is asking for, or what the ordinance changes, is it says if you are a repeat offender of the same city code or violation, so it can't be a different one, but the same one, within a 12-month period, that citation amount doubles. It maxes out at $2,000, so the most that you'd ever pay for a citation would be $2,000. This is the actual language of the citation. It's what I just told you. This is, and then I'm sorry, sounds like it's not on your diocese, so you can't really see it, and you definitely can't see it up here, but this is the city code section, or the fee schedule section, that lists the administrative citation violation amounts. It's also in your packet. I don't have the page number off the top of my head, but as you can see, it does vary. So if it's an abandoned vehicle, that's going to be $200, because keep in mind we have to potentially might be towing that event, and there could be some cost for the city in that. If it's the building maintenance, just a kind of a minor thing, that's a $50 citation. If it's these are really hard to read. Public nuisance including noise, it's $100. Sidewalk, I think I mentioned that, row or a right-of-way, snow and ice removal, that's a $50 citation. So you can see where some of these start fairly low and might need to be eligible for escalation if somebody doesn't comply. I am available for questions. Otherwise, I am looking for a motion to approve ordinance number 747.
Thank you, Amanda. Council, open it up. Questions you may have? A motion if no one's got questions?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 747 to amend Forest Lake City Code Section 36.02E, allowing administrative citation fees to increase with multiple citations.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And motion carries.
Thank you. And there's no resolution because this is a very short ordinance, so no summary publication.
Okay, we have a series of donations we will consider next. Just start at the top here. Item 7F, a motion and I'll just make the motion. Motion council will approve with gratitude Resolution 12-9-2409, a donation from Brenda Kading. And this is specifically for, make sure.
06, Mara,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just so we get it right. 12092406, I thought you
Yeah,
said 09.
1209-2406.
That's-
Motion accepting resolution, or motion accepting donation from Brenda Kading specifically for the Veterans Memorial Project. And motion made very awkwardly, but with lots of gratitude. Is there a second?
Point of clarification, I think there's 2 donations on that motion. Are you going to call them out separately?
Was Mary Lindbergh Trust also had a donation in the same resolution. It just didn't end up on the
Oh, I'm
title
sorry.
of the agenda.
Yes.
We got page 150.
Can I just start over? I would like to make a motion with gratitude to approve Resolution 12-9-2406, accepting donation for the Veterans Memorial Project from both Brenda Kading and the Mary Lindbergh Trust. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries. I'll attempt a second. Motion council approve resolution 12-9-2407, accepting donation from Tired Iron Collision Center in the amount of $1,000 with gratitude for the 2024 Shop with a Cop. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. All right, I would next like to motion for council approval with gratitude 12-9-2408, a resolution of gratitude for the 2024 Hometown Holiday Event volunteers as listed in the resolution. I'm not going to name all of them. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. And last but not least, Resolution 12-9-2409 with gratitude, a donation of Hometown Holiday, and this is for the specific holiday sponsors. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries. Move into staff updates, and let's start with Jolene.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may know, our next regularly scheduled council meeting or workshop is on the 16th. That happens to be the actual last meeting that's officially adopted on our calendar that council considered at the beginning of the year. So at this time, we have nothing on that agenda. So it's looking like this may be our last gathering in this year, and we would be coming back together January 13th as we seat our new council and say thank you and share our gratitude for Mayor Bain and Councilmember Husnick on the 13th of January.
Eddie.
The only thing I have to say is on your agenda, you had a resolution of gratitude acknowledging a ton of volunteers that came out to Hometown Holiday, but I also want to just note for the record the work that Chief Newman and his crew did, helping maintain and put out the fire pits, get those safely put away for the night. Staff from the fire or police department, both Julie and 2 officers were there that night. And then Dave and all of Public Works and Kevin Werner for really helping make the park look great. We really could not have done this event without their support. So I just wanted to at least acknowledge that effort.
Well said. Great event. Thank you. Dave.
Just want to touch base back from open forum about the comment about FLA and the negotiation. Just want to put a little in context. Just last year's agreement the city had with FLA was $30,000. As you recall, we credited them back $15,000 because football left. That $30,000 basically covers fertilization and the scheduling software. So the mowing, the irrigation, the aeration, the thatching, everything else out there is done with city staff that doesn't get charged back to FLOSS. So, not saying that we're not helping out, but I think the city is still putting a lot of time and effort and cost into Fenway Complex and Cooling Camp. So I just wanted to comment back that the city is doing a lot out there, and I think we are doing a very good part in staff time and costs out there. So that was just my one update, and just wanted to comment back on that.
Peterson.
Yeah, we're looking forward to December 16th, the 2024 Shop of the Cop. And then also, I just want to thank all the city council members for their service during 2024.
No
Chief
updates.
Newman.
No updates.
Excellent. Amanda?
No updates, Your Honor.
Line here, Ryan.
Mayor, City Council, it's been asked that I just bring out to recognize the year in review. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive list by any means, and I'm sure every department head would attest to that greatly, as their list could be pages long of things that they've dealt with through the year. But it's good to just see some of the stuff on paper, some of the bigger projects that have been completed that have been in the works for a very long time. County State Aid Highway 33 or Everton Avenue. A lot of great safety improvements there, and I've already seen a lot of residents using the trails, so that's always great to see that activity after a project's been completed. At that magnitude and the effort and time that took into going into that, and then just kind of looking at a lot of the commercial and housing site improvements that occurred here. Some came up quickly, but a lot of other great new options for residents here in Forest Lake. So I think it's just a good list to kind of look back and reflect on some of the things that we accomplished and some things that we had to really work through to get to that point. So with that being said, I also just want to thank Kevin. It's been a pleasure working with you. Gonna miss that coordination and organization that we had and some of the things that we were moving forward on, just how things are documented, and very nice to have that. And then Councilmember Bain and Councilmember Husnick, obviously we go back, way back, so long track record, accomplished a lot. Wish you the best of luck in your free time.
What free time? What free time?
We always say that, right? We always find something else to do.
Kevin.
Mayor Bain, City Council, I just wanted to take this time to say I enjoyed my time at the city here, as this will be my last city council meeting, and I wish nothing but.
Last scheduled.
What's that?
Last scheduled.
Last schedule, yes, I should say that. But I enjoy my time at the city and wish nothing for the best for the city as you move forward.
Thank you, Kevin. You are leaving your position in much better place than I think when you came in. We're coming out of just having a contractor in a role for a very long time, and there's somebody in that seat for an interim period, and we're just sitting in much better shape. So thank you for all of your work. Much appreciated. Good luck. Start with council updates, and Councilmember Erickson.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I really do appreciate the work you've done, Kevin. Coming into on the council 2 years ago, a 10-year plan in place was huge, and I know you're an instrumental part of that. So appreciate that. Let's make a quick comment about Friday's activities at the park. I think it was incredible. It looked fantastic. I had a friend stop by my office today who had been in attendance with a couple of his grandkids, and he had nothing but awesome things to say. And in fact, he doesn't live in Forest Lake, but he says this is our adopted town because we just do it right.
Yay.
So that was great feedback. I enjoyed. So, thank you.
Well done. Councilmember Husnick.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Kevin for all his years of work here, the past few years especially, and I know that we're going to lose our building inspector too, Bob Prue, but he's not here tonight. But good people have always done hard work here in the city of Forest Lake, and thanks to all the folks here that worked in the office. Also, I want to congratulate the winners of the last election, Mr. Robertson, our new mayor, and Jeff Larson sitting out, he's our new council member, and Hannah being reelected. And to thank Mara Bain for 8 years of service to this city. So I think I hit everybody. I hope so anyways. So that's it, thank you.
Councilmember Valento.
I want to give an update that the Cable Commission, we are having our last meeting for the year this Friday, starts at 4, and then we do kind of like a holiday party with food, and everyone is welcome at 5. And I just want to appreciate the staff for the work for the budget, since we passed that tonight. So that is just always an accomplishment. And give appreciation and thanks for Hometown Holidays. As everyone has mentioned, it was a great event. And it's always fun to just see where that started from when I started council to where it's going. And I think it's growing in the amount of people that go there. It's becoming such a wonderful event. And then the appreciation of Kevin. Just like Leif said, the amount of work that you put in for the 10-year budget plan was instrumental, and I don't think we'd be where we are. And I know staff puts their hard work into the 10-year budget plan, and I'm just a huge fan of the 10-year budget plan. I couldn't speak more about it, and it just helps us moving forward with council goals, but also community goals, and we couldn't have gotten there without you. So, and good luck in your next adventure.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, just to echo the hometown holiday, very Norman Rockwell-esque. It was just a beautiful evening, and especially to thank all the sponsors, one of which is on the council here, that had a considerable amount of effort in that, so appreciate that. And Kevin, thank you, for your hard work. I don't know how numbers guys like you guys work, but thank God we have you guys. And so then, appreciation to Mayor Bain and Councilman Husnick. I look forward to a little bit of recognition on the 13th, but thank you for your service.
Just real quick, couple things. Hometown holiday event, we knocked it out of the park. If we could do that every single year, it would just be wonderful. Your description of a Norman Rockwell event was perfect. Well done. Just quick note that no one's mentioned it already, we do have the recycling center opening up, grand opening next Monday. I hope you all will come and take a tour. There'll be tours available, opportunity to speak. I believe our Commissioner Miron will be there. We'll keep comments to a bare minimum, and we'll keep the focus on what's important, which is we're opening up a great recycling facility. So great to have that on the calendar. Quick moment of acknowledgement. Councilmember Husnick, thank you for you were on Planning Commission when we merged with the township or annexed the township or whatever we call that thing that happened years ago. You were very involved in that.
There were various phases of it.
Yes, it was not a short project. And then also your work on the Airport Commission and ultimately on council for the last 8 years. It's just been a pleasure, and thank you. Well done. Thank you to staff for all of the work that you do. We know that you are all wearing multiple hats, and your grit, without your grit, none of this gets done. And so we're just really immense gratitude. I'm going to get emotional, and I wasn't going to. I just want to say to this council that I encourage you to make the hard decisions early so that you can look forward. 8 years ago, I ran to be able to move Forest Lake forward, and we spent a lot of time looking backwards and trying to catch up. Soon after I was elected, it may have been the night I was elected, Susan Young said to me, "I don't think you know the amount of work you have ahead of you." And I spent the first year sitting down in Patrick's office saying, "What's the plan for? What's the plan for? What are we doing about? What's the plan for?" And he finally I'd walk into his office and he'd say, "God damn it, there is no plan." And so we have a plan. Thankfully, there's a plan. But when you look at what is on that plan, it's the backlog list turned on its head, and at least we've got things on a plan. There's so many things we want to do in this town that we just haven't even gotten to yet. And I know these budget numbers are hard. It's hard to fund it. But do it early so you can get to the good stuff. I wanted to do so much with our downtown, and I still walk through our downtown. I'm like, gosh, what an unappreciated, underutilized just gem. We've got this entire southwest corridor that's opening up, and I'm sorry, I'm emotional. But these were things that we need to do and we want to do, but you can't do it if you don't have a plan for streets. You can't do it if you don't have public safety fully funded and staff in place and all of the things. And so I am very grateful to this community supporting us getting to where we are, but we've got a lot of work. And so do it early, like catch up, make the hard decisions. Nobody spoke in our Truth and Taxation hearing tonight we probably could have gone a lot further. And it takes 1 year to catch up. We took a giant increase to streets last year. We got 1 year of, gosh, does it have to be that far? And then it's built into the base, and you just get to move on. And I know those words don't win elections, and we all have to be elected, and I have the freedom of not needing to be elected anymore. But do the hard work, get it done, so that you can then start looking forward and doing the really fun stuff that we all want to do. But it has to go in the right order. I'm a big believer, and you have to go in the right order, and we have, and I'm just immensely grateful we have. So thank you for getting us here, and my apologies for being a bit of a mess. That is the end of our planned agenda. I will manage to wish you all a very, very, very happy holiday and nothing but the best in all of 2025. You are all in really great hands, and you're going to do great work. Please, somebody motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.